Pride and hubris in Beowulf. Throughout history, pride and hubris can be found as some of the main emotional factors of mankind. In literature, and Beowulf especially, too much pride can be found tied to violence. In an article written by E.P. Diamandis, a Department of Medicine and Pathology professor in the University of Toronto, the idea of hubris among world leaders and people of power is discussed. Hubris and too much power are often the root of many behavioral issues such as a lack of inhibition, poor judgment, or even narcissism, among other things. Many times, an unwillingness to take advice or take time to think about actions before doing them is the undoing of people in leadership positions, and this comes as a direct result of hubris. One thing that can stop hubris and pride from consuming someone is humility. Humility is defined as the quality of having a modest or low view of one's importance, or realizing your own importance. Ultimately, Diamandis says, responsible leaders, including acclaimed scientists, should exercise greater humility in order to function at the top of their game. And everyone should try to seek out and challenge people who are overconfident or too prideful and tell them to have more humility. Though the primary audience of this article was psychologists and psychology students, everyone can take something from it, especially world leaders and people of great power. In Beowulf, many of the characters suffered from too much pride and a lack of humility. Overconfidence and pride are the main reasons for Beowulf's violence. Beowulf especially struggles with containing his pride throughout the poem. After he kills Grendel, Hrothgar even warns Beowulf, telling him, "Do not give way to pride. For a brief while your strength is in bloom, but it fades quickly. And soon will follow illness or the sword to lay you low." Heaney, 1760 to 1764. Hrothgar foreshadows Beowulf's undoing as a result of pride early on, but ironically, like many other overprideful people, Beowulf's pride prevents him from heeding this advice. Beowulf's fatal flaw ultimately was his overconfidence when he decided to resort to violence and take on the dragon, even though he knew he was not as strong as he once was. His overconfidence in himself even led him into battle with only one man by his side, Wiglaf. Any other person in their right mind in this situation would have made sure that they were well equipped and had many men to help to take on the dragon, but Beowulf didn't. Though Beowulf did eventually defeat the dragon in the end and gain the treasure he wanted, it came at the cost of his life. In the end, Beowulf could have avoided his death if he had just followed Hrothgar's advice or thought along the lines of Diamandis and had more humility. In literature and in real life, hubris can be found at the root of many wars and violence. And for people in power, and even myself, humility is necessary to prevent bad from overtaking good, and is a key characteristic of a good person. It is important to never let pride go to your head, and in many cases, having too much pride is worse than having no pride at all. An author named J.C. Ryle sums it up best. Pride is the oldest and most common of sins. Humility is the rarest and most beautiful of graces.